Greetings and welcome my fellow Guardians, Joker here, and it looks like Bungie has dropped a bit of a teaser trailer for their upcoming Twitch stream tomorrow. So without any further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right on in. First up, we get a glimpse of another cutscene. Bungie has been really trying to push that the Taken King is going to have a much more cinematic approach to storytelling. We've seen several high-end CGI cutscenes and endgame cinematics thrown around throughout all the various reveals for the Taken King. Let's just hope they're not building up a hype train that they can't deliver on. I'm not expecting the next great Shakespearean play here, just a bit of what we find in the Grimoire. Moving ahead a bit, we get a glimpse of a group of faction guardians with Dead Orbit in the center, Future War Cult on the right, and New Monarchy on the left. It's also interesting to note that the gear is from the different Vanguard and Crucible gear we've had throughout Year 1. Future War Cult is vanilla, New Monarchy is Dark Below, and it looks like Dead Orbit might just be House of Wolves. But I'd be lying if I said I was 100% sure on that. Still, it's interesting to see them use the Year 1 gear in such a way, instead of, just getting rid of it altogether. I'm sure some people will scream reskin, but what can you do? So we have this freeze frame here, and it's of a level 40 Void Hunter, and there's a lot going on here, so let's cover the most important thing first, light. So it looks like Bungie is doing what a lot of people thought they were going to do with light, since we found out that it would no longer be the deciding factor on your level. Bungie is going to go ahead and take a more World of Warcraft approach to gear, as far as gear score. The score is not necessarily invocative of your ability to complete a task, but it determines how ready you are for said task. I.e., if you're a skilled player, you can still probably complete most tasks at the bare minimum requirements, but if you're not, you may need to grind your light level up a little further to compete in those events and those tasks and those missions. This is great and all for PvE, however, I wonder how this is going to affect PvP. In playlists like Iron Banner and Trials, your light and your level do matter. So how are they going to take this into account? I imagine that there's an upward cap, but how is that determined? I guess we'll find out. There's a couple of other interesting things here, like the 5-pronged tier system for intellect, discipline, and strength. We really don't know that much about the new system other than the fact that it'll now show the time to cooldown for your abilities, and that the cooldown is based on the tier that you have achieved. Though attributes assisting your equipped gear determine this, so it's exactly like it is now, only more streamlined and less complicated, but we don't know that yet. So I guess that's just an assumption. Another cool thing is that all this blue gear that you see this hunter wearing here is the PlayStation exclusive gear from Vanilla Destiny. There's also ghost skins that have rarity to them, and the relic looks like it has a rarity as well. What's interesting about the relic, though, is it vaguely resembles the mines from the Prison of Elders. So could it be that you get these relics from past achievements, much in the same way like The Witcher 3 has the trophies? The last thing I want to go ahead and point out in this still is the Thorn. Now, it doesn't look like any of this guy's gear is upgraded with the exception of his relic and his ghost, so it could just be the case that the gear is unupgraded and that the Thorn is unupgraded. Or it could be a case that it's not a Taken King upgraded Thorn. We don't know. However, we do see something later that leads me to believe that all your Year 1 exotics may get left behind, or require more than just an exotic shard to upgrade. Moving forward, we have this group of ships, and I find it kind of funny that the Dead Orbit in Vanilla was probably one of the most sought after ships in the game. Here, Future War Cult and New Monarchy have really kick-ass looking ships, and yet Dead Orbit gets a reskin. And I'm sure this could upset somebody, but come to think of it, it is really kind of funny because Dead Orbit in the game and in the lore are just kind of scavengers. They get a lot of their gear and supplies from either stealing it, or from having Guardians go out into the world and find it for them. So giving them a reskinned ship makes a lot of sense for their faction and just kind of gives it another layer of personality. Now here we get a great view of Lord Shax's inventory. Now I have an interesting theory about this, and I think it's something that a lot of people aren't going to want to hear, but I think all our rep is getting reset, and not just our rep, but our marks as well. And it kind of makes sense. What would the point of having all these new green and blue armor and weapons be if I could just walk into the Vanguard and buy new legendary gear before loading up the first mission and Taken King? Now, the community is crafty, and we'll figure out a way around it, we always do, storing legendary weapons and dismantling them for legendary marks, as we are kind of right now, or storing Cryptarch package and rolling them after the Taken King comes out, so we will get engrams that are rolled for Taken King instead of for House of Wolves. You know, we always find a way as a community. Anyways, moving forward, we see that Lord Shax's inventory is now tiered as well. Ranked 1 opens gloves, boots, and class items. Rank 2, chest pieces and ghost shells. Rank 3, helmets. What's also interesting to note is that Lord Shax's inventory has a daily refresh. Hopefully, rerolling the perks on the gear, or better yet, Shax has sets of gear that he'll rotate through. We also see how you get legendary marks. Now, I'm not quite sure what I think of this system. Currently, you play multiplayer and you get marks. Or you play strikes and you get marks. It seems that this isn't the case anymore. Now it looks like you only get marks if you play the dailies and dismantle legendaries. Now, there's two ways to look at this. It's convenient for people who don't have the time to play and grind to get marks. If you do the daily, as we see later on, you get 10 marks. So in theory, you get 20 marks a day, and you can grind that out in less than 20 minutes, as opposed to, say, 10 Crucible marks in 3 to 4 games. And then, on top of that, 2 strikes just to get 10 Vanguard marks. This is a really great streamlined system for people who don't have a lot of time, and the only argument against it that I can honestly think of is that, oh man, I'm only 10 more marks away from something I really want to get, so I'm going to go ahead and grind out Crucible real quick. Now it's, oh, I'm 10 marks away from something I really want to get, and now I gotta wait till tomorrow. Or grind out and get a legendary weapon and hope it's something I'm willing to dismantle. And then further hope that it gives you an adequate amount of marks for dismantling. Moving forward, we see Fireteam factions again. Interestingly enough, we know a lot of Dead Orbit's weapons is going to be Amalon based. And it kind of looks like it's going to be the same for future War Cult gear as well. However, New Monarchy is Suros. It's just something interesting I noticed. Also, we now have reward breakdowns not only on the screen, but in the chat. A much needed change in my opinion. Also, take a look at the new modifiers. Not sure what it is, but it's cool nonetheless to see that they're bringing more modifiers into the Taken King. Not much more to say about that, so let's go ahead and move right along to the quest screen. 32 active quests with subquests under those quests, and then 16 bounties at a time. And can we take a moment to appreciate the logo design for some of these quests? Someone in the UI department went above and beyond the Call of Duty and needs a raise. Also, what's that I spy with my little eye? Does the speaker wish to speak with us Year 1 players? I wonder for what? Probably to tell us the tower has changed and that we need to go look at everybody's inventory, much like House of Wolves when the Reef opened. But they gave us a bunch of stuff, so I'm cool with that. Titan Hammer, and cut to factions. Holy actual fuck. There's a lot here. So, let's start from the top down. Faction Allegiance. This is cool because it looks like it's giving you an idea of what the faction stands for. You know, other than one's the Rainbow Army, one's the Peppermint Army, and then one's the guy with the really cool black armor shaders. Now, if you pick a faction, you're standing for an ideology. No, who am I kidding? You're standing up for who has the best shader, but it's a nice touch nonetheless. Skipping forward just a bit, we see that you can change your alliance only once a week, and that it costs 2,500 Glimmer, further pushing the idea that you are making a choice and that you are probably going to stick with it. However, I wonder what this means for all the faction items that you already have. If they don't belong to the faction that you're signing up with, I wouldn't imagine that you'd be allowed to sign up with Future War Cult and use a Dead Orbit class item that you already have to level up both Future War Cult and Dead Orbit. My guess is they'll either A, take away the ability for all class items to give rep, B, make it to where you can't wear an opposing faction's class item while you're allied with another faction, or C, the badge will override all progress gained by the class item. Another thing we can vaguely see is that material exchange has returned from vanilla Destiny. From what we know, you can trade in materials you currently own for reputations with factions. Now, on the off chance that marks won't convert, I'm going to go ahead and move most of my marks to materials, so I can kind of expedite the leveling of any faction that I decide to side with. Moving forward, we see the Dream Team again, and check out that Suros rifle the Titan has. Oh, yeah, and the Future War Cult guy has an animated helmet. I guess that's kind of sick, too. And then the boom. The info explosion. So, A lot of this stuff being shown to us, we already kind of knew was coming to the Taken King, but it's good to see what will be clarified tomorrow. First up, the level 25 base minimum level for Taken King. And this is going to be the level that you enter in when you create a new character and use that boost once Taken King comes out. If that makes any sense. Second, I think a lot of people have already figured out what they're going to be doing with the vaults. Bungie can't necessarily expand vault space, but they can come up with creative ways to store our weapons and nameplates and shaders, and we know that they're going to be doing things such as the kiosk that replace tests. And now it looks like they're going to be doing that with the exotic weapons as well, possibly even the raid weapon. My guess is you'll always have access to all the exotics you obtained, and now you'll have the option to dismantle the ones that are taking up space in your vault, the ones that you're not using. And at any time you want to use them, you can get a blueprint for the exotic that you've owned and recreate it for free. I assume that the cost would be leveling it up again, if you ever leveled it up in the first place. This is kind of a clever solution to a complicated problem, because if you don't want to deal with dismantling your exotics, you don't have to. But if you're like me and have a bunch of exotics that you've never put any leveling into them and you have no plan to ever use them, you just want them for collection purposes, this is an amazing solution. Sure, it's not as amazing as more vault space, but at this point, because of the limitations of last gen, I think it's nearly impossible for them to do it. However, with this, the exotic blueprint kiosk and the nameplate and shader kiosk, I wouldn't be surprised if we see them reallocating vault space that was set aside for this stuff to allow us to hold more armor and weapons, even though we still only have the same amount of slots. Speaking of collections and vault space and exotic weapon blueprints, what's going on here? So, we have Year 1 and Year 2 weapons. We can see the models of Year 1 Hawkmoon, Monte Carlo, Last Word, Bad Juju at the bottom. Up at top we can see Hawkmoon, Last Word, Monte Carlo, and Bad Juju again. However, this time the icons are a little different, most notably with the Last Word, and they have the Taken King icons on them. So, does this mean that Year 1 exotics are in fact being left behind? And now we've got to grind out to reclaim our prized weapons for Year 2? That would be particularly stupid. Hopefully, it's just a way of kind of distinguishing what year you got your weapons in. Like, hey, I have a Year 1 Thorn as opposed to a Year 2 Thorn. However, this is all speculation. What's not is, that's a Black Shuros. Okay, that's still speculation. Now, I'm not going to go as far as to say that it's a Suros regime. It certainly has the shape, however, the markings are different. What we do know is there is a line of Black Suros weapons, like the Black Suros AMD 94. They're blue weapons, and usually they're dismantled as soon as they're decrypted, but I don't know how I feel about the reskinning of a Suros, considering Suros is going to be a larger entity in the Destiny universe. So, one would think that Suros would have more unique exotics. However, I'll be waiting to pass judgment on this beast of a weapon until I actually retrieve and use it. Next up, Taken Gate Lord on Mars. Nothing else to see here. So, this is a really cool kind of thing that we have here, and I kind of find it hard to believe that they would create a cinematic of all the characters walking in engine together in the hangar bay for a trailer to build up hype for what's essentially a big, long, hour-long trailer, right? Like a huge reveal event. So does this mean that maybe, hopefully, we'll see our entire fire team in cutscenes? It would be a really nice touch and make it feel like we're more of a part of the world instead of just bystanders sitting in it doing shit because it's a video game and that's what you do in a video game. Anyways, ladies and gents, that's going to be it for this video. Like, subscribe, and favorite, but like always, my fellow Guardians, stay frosty.